Hey everybody, great to see you. Mr. Smith here. In today's deck, what we're going to do is to cover one kind of example in particular that gives people a little bit of a hard time. It's a situation where you have sticky collisions, which means that momentum is conserved in part, energy is conserved in part, and what we need to do is have a little bit of wisdom about what technique to use when. So here we go. A little reminder. In the real world, there are two types of collisions. There are elastic collisions that are kind of rare, honestly. You have things that objects, typically hard objects like steel balls, hit each other. Kinetic energy going in and kinetic energy going out are equal. Okay? Well, momentum is always going to be conserved, but it's a little bit unusual that kinetic energy is because more in the real world you have things that are like car accidents where energy can be lost to the deforming of metal or the production of sound or any host of a number of things. Heat's a biggie. So what we're going to do is to remember that both of these laws work, but there's an appropriate time to use each one. So what we're going to do is to take a look at a precursor example that's pretty handy. What I've got here is a bullet flying along at some unknown velocity, and that's the whole point of the problem. We're going to find that. Bullet hits the block. Now, when I have that kind of collision, that's called inelastic. Absolutely, kinetic energy is going to go out the window in this process of bullet hitting block. The bullet's going to heat up, the bullet's going to deform, the wood's going to deform, all that stuff. Okay? Momentum's going to be conserved, however. So let's just see what that would help. They tell me I've got the 5-gram bullet flying along, strikes a 2-kilogram wooden block, and that's where the information stops. They don't give me enough information to use conservation of momentum to figure this out. Okay, so I'm going to have to use conservation of energy. Well, not necessarily. They give me a distance. They give me a coefficient of friction. You know what I could do? I could use Newton's laws here. I could draw a free body diagram. Always a good idea. I could figure out the force of friction that acted. I could figure out the acceleration of this block as it started to slide. And then what I could do is go and link that with this and figure out the velocity. All right, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do instead is conceptually simpler, and it's a thing that most people prefer, although you could do it the other way if you wanted to. What I'm going to start with, though, in solving this is to take and draw a picture of bullet block together and go ahead and just whip out a quick free body diagram here. Force normal is equal to the mass of 2.005 times gravity, so let's call it 20.05 newtons. And that's the same as the up and the down, so the weight is equal to the force normal. And then as the block slides, the only force acting on it is the force of friction. So I know two things. Force of friction is going to equal 0.8 times this 20.05 force normal, and that's easy enough. I get 16.04 newtons of force friction out of that. And then the other thing that I know is that work equals force times distance, and it's a really super handy concept. It's the linkage piece that goes between forms of energy when they're changing. So work by friction is going to be equal to force times distance, 16.04 newtons, times that 1 meter. Now, to be honest with you, I really like this approach. I get 16.04 joules because it just makes so much common sense to me that if 16.04 joules of work was done by friction, that had to have been the kinetic energy that this situation had just as it began to slide. Okay? And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use conservation of energy to say KE initial was 16.04 joules. That became 0 when, as we just saw, work was done on it by friction. And what that lets me do is go figure out the velocity of the bullet block was equal to 2 KEs over m, all square rooted. And so I'll just go ahead and plug in the appropriate numbers and see what happens. So 2 times 16.04, 2.005 kgs. And basically the 2's cancel, and I've got the square root of 16, and that tells me that's the 4 meters per second. All right, now that's really handy. That's the missing piece of info that I needed to go ahead and grab this. What I can do now that I know that the bullet block slid away from the collision at 4 meters per second is just to put it in its place. Here's the bullet before the collision, M1 V1I. Here's the block, M2V2I, just sitting still, waiting to be shot. Then I have M1 V1F, let's go get that, M1 V1F plus M2 V2F. This combined, because I had an inelastic collision, gets very easy to look at. So I'm going to put the numbers in all together the way they belong. I have 0.005 kgs times our mystery number, V1I. And then I have combined mass of the bullet block, so 2.005 kgs times 4 meters per second, and we're home free. So I've got 8.02 kilogram meters per second on this side. I've got 0.005 times my mystery number there, and X, my V1I, is 1604 meters per second. Okay? So the big thing is, know when to use conservation of energy, when to use conservation of momentum. Let's take a look at the example that we really wanted to lean into.
3, 2, 1, fire.
Okay, so what we got in this video clip from that's posted on YouTube is that this was a 38 caliber handgun. And so I just did a tiny bit of research, looked up the mass of the bullet in a 38 caliber handgun and got that, 8.6 grams. They provided us with the mass of the block, which was 1.6 kgs, and they gave us this video. And what I did was I took a screenshot of the video and imported it, and I just fixated on this one point right here, where the screw on this big washer is located, and looked at how much higher did that get as the video went on. And what I figured out was that if we called this initial height H0, then this height up here was H equal to 4.5 inches. And then from there, I just converted it. So 4.5 inches is the same as 12.7 centimeters. Okay? Now, what I wanted to talk through is the conceptual part. What I've got going on here is the tail end of the collision. This is the energy piece. I've got the block with a bullet in it swinging freely. So it's got kinetic energy, it's got nothing else. What happens as the block rises into this position is it slows down. So that kinetic energy gets converted into PE, potential energy. And so what I can know is that I have potential energy in this upper situation over here, and I can work backwards and get the energy piece of this thing to work out. So what I'm going to do is lay all that out off camera, and then you can take a look at it. Okay, so what I've got, laid it all out. I have energy being conserved, KE turns into PE. We can go and figure out what must have the velocity of the block been in the first situation, okay? So how do we employ that? Same way as we did before. I'll lay this out off camera and you can take a look at it. Okay, so as we did before, we're taking conservation of momentum. Block is stationary initially. Here comes the bullet with its momentum. Momentum's always conserved, and here we go. We've got the incoming velocity of the bullet. That's it. Final thing, I just want to give you a quick look at one kind of example that does this and maybe does it in a way that's a little bit different. In this version of a ballistic pendulum, what they're going to give us is angular information instead of this straightforward height difference information, but it really amounts to the same thing, so it's nothing to get faked out over. What they're going to do is show us an initial situation. Ballistic pendulum rises and shifts by an angle alpha. And to use the conservation of energy bit that we talked about before, we really just need to get the height that it rises so we can do potential energy, work backwards to the kinetic energy, and so forth. So what I did was I just focused on the after picture where I've got the bullet in the block and it just starts to swing. And what I want to focus on is the fact that the length of the pendulum wire is length L, and then the pendulum rises to this other height. So now L shifts places, and it becomes the hypotenuse of our triangle. And if I just work backwards and take and draw a horizontal line, that I can use to help me locate this distance right here, which I'm going to call L prime. So L, the length of the wire, becomes L prime, and by comparing those two, I can just subtract them and figure out the vertical height increase. So not tricky to do, just use a basic trig. L prime is going to equal L cos of alpha. And so therefore, height, like we said, is just going to equal L minus L prime. And if you wanted to make it a little bit prettier, all you do is just say that's going to equal, let's say, L minus L cos of alpha, or L times the quantity 1 minus the cos of alpha. So that's a thing that you'll see sometimes. Anyway, just a different way to say the same thing. Thanks for watching. Hope that really helped. Take care of yourself and looking forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye now.